camera light blinked red and Ethan Calder's face came alive. His grin, polished by months of repetition, spread wide across the stream. The chat filled instantly with greetings, hearts, and emojis. To his audience, he was the charismatic storyteller who stayed up with them through the midnight hours, their digital companion when loneliness crept in. But the truth lingered in the corners of the room. Behind the glow of dual monitors, the rest of the house lay silent, the air heavy with something unspoken. His voice carried energy, yet his eyes betrayed him, shadowed with exhaustion. The laughter he delivered on cue was mechanical, like an actor bound to a script he no longer loved. He leaned forward, adjusting his microphone, the gold band of his wedding ring catching the light. It slipped slightly as he moved, no longer snug, as if even metal sensed distance between him and the promises it once symbolized. The audience teased him about late nights and lack of sleep, but none of them saw the tension in his jaw whenever the stream dipped into silence. "All right. Lot?" Ethan said brightly, his accent cutting clean through the speakers. "Let's get into tonight's story." His words were smooth, but his foot tapped an uneven rhythm under the desk. He read the comments aloud, bantering like he always did, but his gaze flickered toward the darkened doorway behind him. For a moment his smile faltered. He quickly leaned back, masking it with another joke, but the shift was real. His viewers didn't notice, or perhaps they thought it was part of his performance. In that shadowed hallway, unseen by the chat, someone stood still, watching. Ethan's voice rose again, full of practiced charm, but the air around him had already shifted. The performance was flawless, but the life behind it was cracking. And upstairs, in the silence he refused to face, the first thread of his unraveling marriage was already tightening. Claire Calder stood in the hallway, her arms folded tightly against her chest. The pale glow from Ethan's office spilled across the floorboards, a stark contrast to the still darkness around her. His laughter carried through the crack of the half-open door, bright and rehearsed. To his thousands of followers, he was magnetic, untouchable. To her, he was an echo of a husband who had already left. She didn't step inside. She never did anymore. It was as if the streaming space had become his sanctuary, one she was forbidden from crossing. Her fingers twitched at her side, nails pressing into her palm, but her face remained composed. Silence had become her only form of protest. Upstairs, in the drawer of her nightstand, lay the proof of that silence. A leather-bound journal filled with entries written late at night, when Ethan's voice filled the house and she couldn't bear to hear it. Words scratched in furious ink told the story no one else could read. "He doesn't see me. He belongs to them, not to me. I don't believe this is only entertainment. Who is he really talking to?" She had underlined that last question again and again, the lines digging into the paper until they almost tore through. Once, she had loved his confidence, the way he commanded attention. Now it felt staged, a mask he wore too well. She wondered if there was a part of him that lived only on that screen, a version that was truer than the man she married. The sound of sudden applause from his audience jolted her. Ethan was telling a joke, grinning for strangers who adored him, and Claire felt invisible. Yet she stayed in the doorway, unable to turn away, a spectator in her own home. Her chest rose and fell with the effort of keeping calm, but her eyes stayed fixed on him, cold and unblinking. For a moment she thought his gaze shifted toward her, as if he knew she was there. But he kept smiling, selling the illusion. Claire stepped back into the darkness, her silence unbroken. In her absence, the chat window flickered with a message that seemed aimed at Ethan alone. She knows. The night carried on like any other. Ethan's energy surged as the viewer count climbed, his voice weaving stories to keep the audience enthralled. But then, among the flood of comments, one line cut through. "I see you." He paused for the briefest second, before laughing it off and moving on. The regulars in chat spammed emojis, assuming it was part of the theatrics. Ethan leaned closer to the screen, eyes scanning. The username was new, unfamiliar. Minutes later, another message appeared. "The light in your hallway is still on." A ripple of unease crossed his face. He kept talking, faster this time, filling silence with chatter. Claire, watching from the landing, noticed the way his hand shook when he reached for his drink. "Are you all right?" she asked quietly when the stream ended. Ethan flinched. "I'm fine. Just a troll, nothing new." Claire stepped into the room for the first time that evening. Her arms folded. The monitors still glowed, chat replay scrolling with the ominous lines highlighted by viewers who had noticed. "That's not nothing," she said, her voice low, controlled. They knew the hallway light was on. How could they see that? His expression tightened. "You're overthinking again. It's coincidence." "Coincidence doesn't leave sweat on your forehead," she snapped. The words landed hard. Turned his back, dragging his palms across his face. But his silence only inflamed her. "Tell me the truth, Ethan. Who are you letting into our lives?" His voice cracked with irritation. "Nobody. You always twist things. You want me to give all this up? Everything I've built?" "It's not real," Claire shot back. "This version of you, it isn't a marriage. It's a performance. And now you've got strangers circling us." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the soft hum of the computer filled the air. Finally, Ethan slammed the laptop shut, the sound sharp as a gunshot. "Enough, Claire." Her eyes narrowed, fear colliding with anger. "You're hiding something, I can feel it." Ethan looked at her, his jaw locked, but behind the anger there was something else. Panic. In the dark reflection of the blackened laptop screen, the last message still seemed to echo. "I'm closer than you think." The message lingered in Claire's mind long after Ethan had stormed off. "I'm closer than you think." She replayed it again and again, convinced it wasn't random. Ethan's reaction had been too sharp, too fearful. That night she couldn't sleep. As the house settled into silence, she turned the memory over, searching for cracks. Ethan's mask had slipped before, but never like this. The truth came in fragments. A funeral, years ago, before they married. She remembered Ethan's face, then, pale and strangely hollow, the rain plastering his hair to his forehead as he stood apart from everyone else. He had told her it was an old-school friend, nothing more. She believed him, but the picture of him standing in the downpour, detached from grief yet consumed by something unspoken, had never left her. Now, with the stalker's words echoing, the memory sharpened like glass. When Ethan came to bed, she confronted him. Who was she? He froze at the doorway. What are you talking about? The funeral. The woman. Don't you dare say I imagined it. He laughed, brittle and defensive. You're still on about that? You twist every shadow into a ghost, Claire. You're paranoid. Her voice trembled but did not break. Someone out there knows you. They know this house, and I think they know what you did. Ethan's eyes flashed, anger laced with something darker. I've told you, there's nothing to find. Stop inventing stories in that head of yours. He rolled onto his side, back to her, leaving her staring into the darkness. But the seed had already taken root. If he wouldn't tell her, she would find the truth herself. The next day, while Ethan prepared for another stream, Claire went searching. She moved quickly, heart pounding, opening drawers, shifting papers, scanning for anything out of place. And then she found it. Tucked beneath old receipts was a photograph, the edges frayed, as if handled too many times. A young woman smiled. Into the camera, her eyes soft, her arm linked through Ethan's. Claire's breath caught. He had never spoken her name. From the hallway, she heard Ethan's voice warming up for his audience, louder, brighter, but beneath it she now recognized the strain. Her hand tightened around the photograph. If the stalker was tied to this woman, then Ethan's past had already stepped back into their home. The living room felt colder that night, though no window was open. Ethan arranged his ring light, adjusted his camera, and cleared his throat in front of the mirror. Tonight mattered. A sponsorship deal hovered on the edge of his career, and he promised himself nothing, not even Claire's accusations, would distract him. Claire lingered in the hallway, the photograph still hidden in her pocket. She didn't want to watch, but something inside her refused to leave. She studied the back of his head as he slipped the mask back on, bright smile flashing when the camera light clicked red. "Evening, everyone," Ethan said, his voice rich with confidence. "This is the big one. Glad you're all here with me." The chat erupted, hearts and emojis flooding the screen. Ethan thrived in it, gesturing wildly, laughing at comments, answering questions with rehearsed charm. Yet Claire's eyes picked out the strain. His hands gripped the edge of the desk too tightly. His laughter cracked at the end of each sentence. Minutes passed before the familiar username returned. Still smiling, Ethan. His breath hitched. He kept talking, but his rhythm faltered. Then another message. You never told her about me. Claire leaned forward, her throat tightening. Ethan's smile wavered. His eyes shifted, not toward the chat, but toward the dark corner of the room just beyond the camera's frame. The audience noticed. What's wrong? Scripted or real? Look behind you, Ethan tried to laugh it off. You lot are relentless, aren't you? His voice was thin, unconvincing. Sweat traced his temple as his gaze darted again toward the shadows. Suddenly his body stiffened, his shoulders locked, his expression frozen mid-smile. Claire's hand rose to her mouth. Then the chair toppled. The microphone crashed against the desk. Ethan's body was dragged violently out of frame, the camera shaking as though caught in the aftershock. For a long moment the stream showed only his empty chair. The chat window exploded in panic. What just happened? Stop joking, come back, call the police. Claire stumbled forward, heart hammering. The sound of static filled the speakers, sharp and unnatural, until even the chat slowed. Viewers transfixed by the blank space where Ethan had been. The stream didn't end. It stayed live, the red light burning as if the camera was waiting for something else to appear. The red glow of the live stream still burned in Ethan's office when the first police officers entered. Cables dangled across the floor. His chair lay on its side. And the stream continued without him, an empty stage to an unseen performance. Claire sat on the sofa, pale and trembling as torchlight swept across the room. Detectives took photographs, bagged evidence, and scribbled notes. To them, it wasn't a mystery. It was a domestic case waiting to be solved. By dawn, Claire was at the station, seated beneath a buzzing fluorescent light. A jug of water sat untouched beside her, condensation dripping slowly down its glass. She stared at her own reflection in the two-way mirror, fighting to keep her breath steady. Detective Rowan Hart, tall and severe, placed a leather file on the table and slid a notebook toward her. Its cover was unmistakable. Her journal. Mrs. Calder, Hart said evenly, would you like to explain these entries? Her eyes fell to the underlined words written in her own hand. I hate him. He belongs to them, not me. Claire's throat tightened. Those were thoughts, not intentions. You have to understand, I felt invisible. Rowan leaned forward, unflinching. And last night you watched your husband disappear. Convenient considering the resentment you documented in detail. Her voice broke. I didn't touch him. I saw something in that room. It wasn't a person. The younger detective across from her raised an eyebrow. Not a person? Mrs. Calder, your husband was dragged from his chair on a live broadcast. Who else would it be? Her hands trembled as she pressed them flat to the table. It was behind him. It moved like a shadow, but solid, like it reached through him. You didn't see what I saw. Rowan's eyes narrowed. You expect us to believe a phantom stole your husband from under our noses? Tears welled, but her voice steadied with desperation. You think I'm guilty because it's easier than facing the truth. Something took him, and it's not finished. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the scrape of Rowan's pen across paper. He slid the diary back toward her, the weight of suspicion pressing down like iron. In the corridor beyond the door, an officer muttered about the recovered stream footage. Something strange had been recorded, something that refused easy explanation. Claire's head lifted, eyes catching the sound, clinging to the faintest thread of hope. The recording had not stopped. For hours after Ethan's chair toppled, the stream carried on, broadcasting nothing but an empty room. His followers had watched in real time, thousands staying glued to their screens, waiting for him to return. Some called emergency services. Others insisted it was all a stunt. At the station, Detective Hart loaded the recovered file onto a laptop. Claire sat rigid across the table, her pulse loud in her ears. The screen flickered, the footage playing back from the moment before Ethan's disappearance. There he was, smiling, animated, masking unease. The chat scrolled frantically along the side, the final comments begging him to explain what was happening. Claire's eyes refused to leave his face. Then the distortion began. The image juddered, colors bleeding at the edges, as though the camera struggled to capture what entered the frame. A low static hum filled the speakers. Behind Ethan's chair, a figure emerged. It was no trick of light. Shoulders too broad for the room, posture rigid. Its presence warped the recording itself. Yet its face was a smear of blurred pixels, as if the camera refused to commit its identity to film. Claire gasped, her hand clapping over her mouth. "There," she whispered. "Do you see it?" "That isn't human." The younger detective shook his head, unimpressed. "Glitching. Compression error. Nothing more." But Hart's eyes narrowed. He replayed the moment frame by frame. The blurred figure leaned closer, its arm stretching toward Ethan's shoulder. The static thickened until the sound resembled words half-formed, a whisper threaded with menace. Claire's tears streaked down her face. "You can't deny it now." "That proves it wasn't me." Hart paused the video. The frozen image showed Ethan mid-smile, unaware, while the shadow stood just inches behind him. Yet the blurred outline carried something unnervingly human. A tilt of the head, a posture that seemed familiar. Hart muttered almost to himself, "Why does it look like someone he knew?" Claire leaned forward, her voice trembling but fierce. "Because it was." Whoever that was, Ethan let them into his life long before last night. The room fell silent. All eyes locked on the blurred figure. And then from the laptop speakers, a voice seeped through the static, low, fractured, but clear enough to chill every person in the room. "She doesn't deserve the truth." The words from the recording gnawed at Claire long after the detectives shut the laptop. She doesn't deserve the truth. They were meant for her, spoken in a voice distorted yet deliberate. It wasn't random and it wasn't supernatural static. It was someone who knew Ethan. She returned home under police watch, the house stripped of warmth, every corner heavy with absence. Ethan's desk still bore his fingerprints, the empty glass of water, the tilted webcam, the faint indentation where his hand had rested. Claire stood there, staring at the black monitor, her reflection fractured across the screen. She searched his drawers again, this time without hesitation. Letters, old receipts, bank slips. And then she found it. A folded piece of paper buried beneath the cables. A church order of service. The same funeral she had never been told the truth about. On the back, scrawled in hurried ink, was a name. Isla Renwick. Claire's stomach twisted. The photograph from days before returned to her mind. The young woman smiling with Ethan's arm wrapped around her. Isla, not just a school friend. Someone more. The stalking messages made sense now. "You never told her about me." Still smiling, Ethan? Whoever had haunted the chat wasn't a stranger at all. It was someone tied to Isla's death. Someone who blamed Ethan. But the cruelest cut came when she pieced it together. Ethan had known. The unease in his eyes, the panic at the messages, the silence whenever she asked. He hadn't been caught off guard. He had been waiting. Claire pressed her palms flat to the desk, rage and grief burning through her veins. "You lied to me until the end," she whispered, her voice shaking. The screen flickered suddenly, static crawling across its surface. For a moment, an image bled through. A warped figure standing beside Ethan, too close, its blurred face turning as though it was looking directly at her. And then the feed collapsed into white noise. The stream ended not with answers, but with silence. Detectives would file their reports. The public would speculate endlessly, but nothing could stitch the truth back together. Ethan was gone. The stalker vanished, and Claire was left in the ruins of their marriage, clutching a name that explained everything, yet resolved nothing. As she stared into the blank screen, her reflection stared back, fractured and wet with tears. She didn't know if Ethan had been taken by a man seeking revenge, or by something darker that had worn human skin. Either way, he had chosen to keep his secrets, and she was the one left to live with them.